We're going to take a couple of minutes before we officially get started to let you get seated, get acquainted. Feel free to turn on your cameras if you'd like to share your living room decor. I'm stealing jokes from Morgan here. We'll get started in just a minute. Of course, we'll introduce everyone and let you know who's here for the panel. But it's going to be a very exciting event, so stay with us. Take your time to try to look for any friends, and you could contact them through the chat. And then I do recommend, though, going to speaker view and seeing us a little bit larger, because for most of this conversation, everybody will be muted. During the Q&A part, we will open it to questions. So we will unmute you if you have a question, but we'll explain that for anyone who hasn't been in one of these Q&As yet very soon. We'll get started in just a moment. Okay, folks, I think we're ready to get started. I'll get us started in just 1 minute. I'm Isaac Zablocki. I'm Director of Film Programs at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we're excited to host this Q&A after the film Tahara. We hope you've seen it. If not, I think you have another few hours till midnight tonight to see it, so you can still catch it. This was a very special, exclusive virtual screening that was available for 48 hours. Let me just also tell you some of our upcoming programs that we have in the next few weeks. We just announced our July schedule. This week, available right now, is the film No Small Matter, which is a documentary about preschool, early childhood development, a fascinating documentary, and we're doing a full run of this film. And you can watch the film, and then we have a Q&A with the filmmaker and one of the teachers from the film on tomorrow night. So join us again here tomorrow night, same time, same place, kind of. And then we have, throughout July, we are screening films, first of all, for our ReelAbilities Film Festival, which is our disabilities film festival for those of you who are not familiar. So we're screening, it's the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we'll be celebrating with a screening of some of our favorite short films from the last couple of years, our opening night film from this past year, Code of the Freaks, and a special Q&A for the Obama-produced film Crip Camp. So join us for all of those. We're also going to be doing a few virtual releases of films throughout July, and that's going to include the film The Tobacconist, and at the end of July, My Polish Honeymoon. So much coming up. Please be sure to check our listings and to be a part as much as you can. So now I recommend, if you haven't moved to speaker view yet, now's the time to stop looking at your friends and join us on speaker view. And I'm really excited to introduce some members of the cast and crew of Tahara. Some you might recognize already, but I want to start by saying that this film really stands out. And I mean, we screen pretty much every Jewish themed film that comes our way, and we see much more than that, and run 4 different film festivals every year that are extremely diverse. And I have not seen for a long time a film as creative as this one. I thought it captured a tone. I thought it captured teen angst in a beautiful, relevant way. I thought it captured Jewish life in a way that I had never seen before captured. And I mean, I'd hate to compare it in some ways to Girls or I don't know, Broad City or other kind of young representations of today, because I think it wouldn't do this film justice. I think Tahara really is a fresh look at cinema, and I have a ton of questions, but of course we'll open questions to our audience as well after I start off with a few questions. You could write them in the chat, and we will then open your mic and call on you. We'll let you know that we're calling on you in advance. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce some of the cast and crew from the film. So we have the writer of the film, first of all, Jess Zeidman. Hi, Jess. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jess. I wrote the film, and I'm also one of the producers.
Excellent. We have here one of the actors in the film, Madeline Grey DeFreece. Did I get that right? Hi, Madeline. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, hi. I played Carrie.
And then we have two of the producers, Madison Ginsberg. Madison, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Dasha Gorin. Dasha, thank you. And then, am I missing anyone else who's joined us since our waiting room conversation?
That's who we have so far.
If anybody else joins, just let me know, and we'll include them in the conversation. So I was saying what a fresh film it is, and first of all, I want to talk. First, I must applaud a film. It happens to say on IMDb your budget, or what might be claimed as your budget, and it is, I'll just mention, under $200,000 according to IMDb. And I applaud independent spirits and films that, I mean, Hollywood wastes so much money because you can make a perfectly magical film that includes animation, that includes special effects, at a fraction of the price, and I think has a lot more heart than many of the other films I get to see these days. How did this all start? Let's start there. Jess.
Oh, I'll take it away. You know, I wrote this film as part of a film class at Northwestern University, where I went along with Madison and Dasha, as well as our director, Olivia Peace. And I wrote it in a class called Writing the Micro Budget Feature. So it was written in mind to be filmed for under, I guess, $200,000. And so that sort of created the restrictions of the script, you know, one day, one location, a small cast. And from there, I linked up with Dasha and Madison, and they, you know, kind of created the budget. I'd never produced a feature before, but they both had experience, and we asked a lot of favors and got a lot of support. We had a free location, which definitely helped with the budget, Temple Bethel in Rochester, New York, which is the synagogue that I went to growing up. And, you know, we worked with some local crew and some local cast, and we had, most of the cast was from New York City, so it wasn't, you know, the biggest expense to bring them out to Rochester, which is in Western New York. And, you know, people stayed at my house, in my childhood home. Shout out to my parents for letting a film crew take over their house for like 3 weeks in May of 2019, sorry. And, you know, we just made it work. And it was a lot of, you know, kind of compromises and understanding of like the restrictions of the budget going in. And that's sort of how we made it happen.
How many days were the shoots? Madison, you want to take this one?
Yes, it was 15 days, I believe, right, guys?
That's right.
Yeah, and yeah, just a huge thank you to Jess's family for letting us stay there, and Temple Bethel. Oh my goodness, we could not have done it without them. The Jewish community in Rochester was really the best.
So accommodating, yeah.
Had they read the script?
They received it. If they read it, it remains unclear.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, as Madison said and Dasha echoed, you know, the Jewish community, the one I was raised in, especially we have a Jewish film festival in Rochester. There's a love of the arts. You know, Eastman Kodak is from Rochester, and there's a history of filmmaking from the community and a strong Jewish community. So I think they were just excited to make something happen. And especially, you mentioned, you know, you never seen this aspect of Judaism before. that's sort of like how I was brought up conservative, and going to Hebrew school and having that community is something that I think we were all excited to make a movie about.
Well, you're jumping in there to an interesting point, which is it's exactly that. It's kind of, I mean, the fact that it was shot in a conservative synagogue, these synagogues that are like, from another time. I probably shouldn't be quoted on this too loudly, but the conservative movement is not at its peak right now. And it had a peak where a lot of these synagogues were started, and it's just fascinating to see that world, to see that atmosphere, and yet you're telling a story, and maybe I'm going to throw this one to Madeline. You're telling a story about I feel like that is Judaism today. It's young teenagers who are during Hebrew school, are hooking up and being cynical about death, and having their experiences, and are much more diverse than the Hebrew schools that I went to or my parents went to, of course. Madeline, how did you come into this, and can you talk about your role a little bit, because I think she's a fantastic character, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Well, I think I've told Jess this story before, but when I first received like the casting call, I was like, okay, like young Jewish girl. I was like, oh, this ain't me. I was like, they sent this to the wrong person. I was like, okay. And then, so I did my audition and everything, and then got the call back, and then I was like, I really got to like read the script. Like, and it was just such a beautiful story. And like, it was one of like the first times that I had read a script about high schoolers that was like, this is high school. I feel like we always try to kind of like build like these fantasy worlds about like what high school should have looked like, with like football games and pep rallies and all this stuff. And I was like, this is what high school is like. All these relationships are so toxic. All these like other displays of high school in the media don't need these crazy twists and turns, because these friendships and all these things, like the stakes are really just that high. And it was so amazing and refreshing to read a script that was like, that like took on all of those things and like really delved into those things as such, in putting the stakes so high as we would for these crazy other plot lines that we see in all these other like forms of high school. And that was really amazing for me. And like with Jess and Olivia, they really worked so hard on like having Rachel and myself and the rest of the cast really like hone in on like, this is so real to you. Like, go back to high school. Let's all take a trip back to high school.
It totally worked. I mean, the tensions, I mean, I was laughing, crying, and felt those tense moments throughout. Dasha, I want to ask you about, just on a production level, or anyone can answer this, but just I like to have one person start. I love the aspect ratio. Let's talk about how this was shot and why.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I know this was Olivia's idea almost from the beginning. She really liked the idea of shooting in a square, kind of to mimic Instagram and the takeover that has had on the younger generation, and the symmetry of it, and also to represent the sort of crushed perspective that you have in your youth, and the sort of limited lens that you are working with in dealing with your life and your relationships. And we at first weren't sure. We were very scared of taking what felt like a big risk. We weren't sure about the implications that it would have for screening and for distribution, but we ended up really falling in love with it. We actually, even initially when we were filming, we sort of said like, you know what, let's play it safe. Let's make sure that we can do either version, that we can release it in a normal ratio, and then we'll also have a one-to-one available as an option. And very quickly we fell in love with the shots that we were getting in the one-to-one, and also with the limitations of the budget we had and the equipment that we had, we realized that it would just be very restrictive to keep trying to have the entire frame clear for that safety. And I think within the first couple of days, we decided to take the jump and just really lean in and trust that one-to-one. Yeah.
I remember when I first started watching it, I was like, they shot this on a phone. That's cool. And they did it not in horizontal, but the vertical way, you know, the way you're not supposed to shoot with your phone, and, but the most casual way. And then you have those beautiful moments where it opens up. How did you do that?
Oh man. I mean, technically speaking, I don't think that I could answer that. All of the cinematography magic is quite beyond me. If anyone else with a little more expertise wants to take a stab at that, I'd be happy to.
So I'll take it from here. Don't worry, Dasha, I got you. We had an amazing cinematographer. This woman, her name was Tahila De Castro. And when we were filming, we played around. Are we going to keep the sides clear to potentially have it a different way? And in the edit, we sort of came to this realization that if we talk about the aspect ratio thematically, there's a way to, like, when we access the internal worlds of the characters, those pillars start to fall away and their worlds start to expand. And so around with removing what are like black bars on the side and just pushing them out for the parts that we had clear, and using the animations to sort of fill the frame on the sides. And it really is to speak to these internal worlds that our characters are experiencing in full color and feeling, as compared to the muted tones, though beautiful, of their like onward perspective in the moment.
It's a beautiful cinematic moment, because it really, like, you suddenly feel, you see these teenagers, like, seeing beyond their frames and suddenly coming to life, with the first kiss, with all those moments that hopefully many of us have experienced, and know that these are moments that, these are what's going to stay with us. I could tell now from my perspective, that's what you remember, that moment when suddenly things became clear. The animation you brought up, also, I felt it was, in general, there's a very postmodern feel to the film, as far as it's just like, it'll go into reality and fiction and jump back and forth kind of in ways that are always surprising, with new forms of medium being involved. Tell me a little bit, was that in the script from the beginning? Did that happen in post-production?
So interestingly enough, I always had moments of sort of mysticism in the script. I love to play with sort of fantasy. And I also, like, as someone who loves reading sort of Jewish mysticism in like fiction and short story, I sort of loved incorporating that into the script. But I didn't have my heart set on animation. And that's really where our director, Olivia, came in. She originally came as a director of animated short films and projects. And so she loves to have an element of animation in everything she does. So when she thought about these fantasy moments, and we talked them through when we were going through the script, she was like, I see these as a potential place for animation in this world we're creating. And the styles of animation are different between the characters to show them processing their fantasies differently. And we had an amazing animator, this woman, Emily Ann Hoffman, and we also had some assistants from another amazing film student, and her assistants, which were great. And they helped really kind of create these two different tones, in addition to, everything else that we wanted to make feel sort of atmospheric about the potential of like a mind, the teenage brain.
Yeah. Fantastic. Madeline, I wanted to ask you also, I mean, your character is so unique, obviously. I have not seen a character like that on film. How were you directed? What were you basing it on? How did you enter? I'm forgetting your character's name, but how are you entering? Say again?
The world of Carrie.
The world of Carrie, exactly.
So right at the beginning, I saw this character and I was like, this is like a young woman who just wants so badly to be authentic and to like live in her authentic self, but she also wants the rest of the world to do the same. But putting the pressure on herself and then also on her peers, she turns out not even being able to like feel authentically and like even like come to terms with her own feelings for her best friend. You know, she wants everyone to be so honest, but she can't even express that herself. And then Olivia and I spoke a lot at the very beginning about talking about how alienated that this character is, like being the only like Black girl in this class and kind of feeling that, you know, she's not represented in this community and she's like the token. And for me, as someone who grew up in like a predominantly white area, I saw that and I was like, I can't relate to this exact specific experience being Black and being like put into a place that I don't see, well, I guess I can, where I don't see myself represented. And so that was something that I focused on a lot in trying to channel all of these emotions, but still through this really timid, kind of insecure teenage version of myself.
Beautiful. And I want to say that Jews of color is a theme that the JCC Manhattan specifically has been exploring in the last few years, as far as understanding the relationship within the Jewish community and the improvements, the many improvements that that need to be done as far as inclusion, and this is becoming a more and more, and there's different numbers out there, but a more and more prominent part of Jewish life, and it's sometimes shocking to know how backwards and how behind the Jewish community can be. And I can imagine that's kind of the beauty of the setting in a conservative synagogue, both if it's conservative with a capital C or not. It's a conservative setting to bring where Judaism is today, the diversity of Judaism to there, I think is an important statement to make. So I applaud that. And I feel with that I'm hearing, and I might be guessing here, was this seems like it was a mostly female cast crew mostly. I don't know about cast, there were a few guys in it, but it's women led. And that is also something that we don't see enough of. And was that different? How did that come to be? I'm gonna
Madison, you want to take this one?
Yeah, Madison.
Oh, sure. We found Olivia. We knew her through school, and the story we like to tell is we originally sent an email to her incorrect email, so we were scared that she wanted no part of it. Luckily, we found out that we were wrong, so she got on board, and she knew our director of photography, Tahila De Castro, and we found our other crew heads through word of mouth mostly. My brother actually was the costume designer. I think he's on the line, so hi Avery, and great work. And our production designer, Jane Clark, she was, we found out about her through some of Jess's friends, I believe. Yeah, so it was really a wonderful crew. And also I wanted to shout out to all of the interns from the University of Rochester Film School who were a great help on set.
Due to the nature of the film, it was pretty important for us to try to have a lot of female production leads. So it was something that we kept top of mind when we were considering who we wanted to reach out to.
I want to give an opportunity for people to ask questions. I know we have some questions already in the chat and we'll open their mics in a second. I just wanted to ask one last question to Jess. Are these people, are any of them, I don't know if if you could be quoted online saying this, are they based on anyone you know? Are these characters, are these stories based on is the story based on any reality?
It's not an autobiographical film. It is sort of a film of an amalgamation of experiences, though. I think I'm a queer identifying person and I'm a Jewish person, and I went to a lot of Hebrew school, and I was just kind of longing to see that kind of world in a movie because it was so, it was so funny and complicated, intense, and confusing all the time to be growing up and sort of discovering one's sexuality and one's religion, and there is no, like, I've never had like a specific like Carrie Hannah funeral situation. I have had, tense friendships and tense relationships and sort of toxic friendships, and I think that's something that we don't get to see a lot. Is we see a lot of like the two best friends that can do it all, or like the best friend and the sidekick. And I was looking for sort of a two-hander of a film to write that would really push the truth of it, that friendships and all relationships are complicated, especially when you're growing up.
Nice. We do have a question from the audience. Anyone else who, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll get you online, but we'll start with Alice. Alice, you're unmuted. Or you're still muted, Alice. Hold on, we can't hear you. Alice, there you go. No?
I think maybe she thinks that she can unmute
Alice,
herself.
we can't hear you, but could we unmute Alice? This is always interesting. I'm trying.
All good.
Morgan, you got her unmuted?
Also trying.
I think Alice needs to, Alice, you might need to unmute yourself.
There she is.
There you go.
I got it for a second.
Try again.
One more time.
Alice, there you go. Now you're unmuted. Nobody touch it.
Okay, hi. I just want to let you know I'm calling from Rochester, New York. And so when the movie started, I said, gee, this synagogue looks very familiar. And then when Hassan Lubitz began singing, oh my God, it's in Bethel, I was totally floored. And it was really weird watching a feature film where you know every part of the building. It was really, it was just amazing. But my question to you is, how did you come about the title Tahara? What made you choose that?
So that's a pretty funny story. So the original title for the film is Tahrihim, which is the burial shroud. I was really interested in the idea of covering up when you think about sort of what they're covering up and what they're cleansed and how they're different. And then Olivia, one of her short films is called Pangea, which is amazing. Check it out. I think it's online. She was talking about how no one could ever spell Pangea correctly when they were trying to talk to people about the film. So she was like, let's choose a name in a similar vein, in a similar ritualistic way that would be a little bit easier to spell. And then we landed on Tahara because it served a similar purpose of that sort of cleansing ritual, and we actually really came to love it. So it stuck, and that's how we got the title of the film.
If you have other questions, feel free to type them into the chat and we'll open up for you. So the film premiered, which is amazing, at Slam Dance, which I'm sure, I mean, that's an amazing achievement, first film. And Slam Dance is a fabulous festival. It's a spin-off of Sundance for those who are not familiar, but kind of keeps the independent spirit that some say Sundance has lost. And I think it's a perfect place for this film. Where has it gone since? Where is it going? Tell us your plans with the film.
Anyone want to take it? I can go.
Sure.
You want to go, Dasha? It's all you.
Yeah, I could grab it. Let me see. I want to make sure I do have an email where I listed everything, but it has gone to a ton of cool places. We screened at Maryland and Frameline pretty recently. It will be playing at the South Korea Women's International Film Festival, as well as UK Jewish, Philadelphia Jewish, And let's see, am I missing anything, Jess?
We're going to, I have a couple that I'm like, I don't know if I can tell you yet, but
Right.
there are a couple more in the US, and I think we're also playing Toronto Jewish. So that'll be fun.
Fabulous, excellent festivals. I mean, I really do think that, I mean, obviously this film is very unique for the Jewish film festival circuit, which I think audiences are usually a little bit older. And this film, I think, speaks nicely to a younger audience, but hopefully older audiences can appreciate it too. But what's great is that I think it also, as we see, it plays at international festivals too, and has, I think a spirit that can relate to absolutely anyone, and you don't need to be to know what Tahara means in order to appreciate the film. Have you been seeing different reactions from, say, the Jewish community versus the mainstream community? Anyone want to? Jess, I'm giving this to you.
Yeah, of course. You know, oh, that's a firework. Lots of fireworks going off in Brooklyn. You know, we have sort of an interesting situation premiering so virtually that we don't get to have that audience feeling. So we've really only got to experience like a more mainstream audience in Utah, but we've had a pretty warm receptive from both Jewish film festivals and queer film festivals. I think that observation that this does skew a little bit younger definitely holds true, but I think people are excited about that. And I really hope to inspire a lot of younger Jewish filmmakers to start, you know, telling their stories. I think it's a really exciting time to make stuff. And I think it would be a really nice way to continue those festivals and bring a lot more spirit to them.
Fabulous. Madeline, I know you have a question or more of a statement, but I'll let you say it out loud. So, sorry, B. Cohen. B. Cohen has a question. We're going to open up your mic. B, you're on the air. I don't know your actual first name. I could read the statement. It's, unless Madeline, you want, I'll read it since we can't hear B. Cohen. There are many, this is to Madeline, there are many articles and websites about the experiences of Jews of color, particularly recently. So thank you for taking a role you thought was not really you. Jewish teens of color are members of Jewish life, so kudos for helping kids and parents feel included.
Well, thank you. And I think the most important thing is that like representation is like huge. I mean, there's so many, like I was saying earlier, I've watched all these things and it took forever for me to see myself in media and mainstream media. So let's keep it up.
I mean, for that reason alone, every Jewish school, every Hebrew school should be showing this film and then getting that teacher fired for showing
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say, I don't know if every Hebrew school wants to be showing this film. I would be very flattered.
Who is your target audience, would you say? Where do you see the sweet spot for this film?
You know, Olivia and I have discussed how we sort of wish there was a world where we could like put the film on Instagram. Like we're not actually going to do that because we want, you know, we want people to see it on a bigger screen. But we really hope that teenagers get to see this film and see an experience of queer life and Jewish life that is not something we talk about often, that people can have complicated friendships, like I mentioned, and that people can be part of religious communities, but it doesn't have to be their entire personality. And so that's sort of our target audience is teenagers and maybe young adults who are still figuring some stuff out.
I would say, I think also film fans, there's a lot to appreciate there. And I think it's just engaging as a film. And I could tell you as somebody who's probably not of your target age, I found it relatable, so it works. I had a question. How many of you from the team here have been to Hebrew school in their youth? Oh, okay.
Raising hands.
As well as almost all of our supporting cast also had Hebrew school experiences. So that was kind of fun for them also to relive that as well.
So it was a familiar environment for everyone. It's such a unique experience, especially, I said it before, the specifically the conservative movement experience of it, I think makes it extremely unique. We have a question from Sue Walsh. Sue, you are on.
Hi, I'm probably also not your target audience, but I found it really resonated as a topic and relationships amongst all kinds of young people. But I was curious why you felt it needed to be set in such a Jewish setting. Does that not limit you in terms of audience?
No, it's a really good question. I think in my objective of writing the film, and then I think wider in our hopes of making it, it's to sort of showcase an aspect of Jewish American life that we don't often see. I think we see a lot of media about high school, and not even specifically, we've had people talk about how even if they're not Jewish, you know, Olivia, our director, isn't Jewish, but she had, you know, a religious education outside of secular school. That's such a huge part of you, and that really isn't something we explore in earnest. So I think that's why we really got so specific with where we wanted to set the film.
So what can people do to support this film? Where can people tell their friends to see the film? How can this film get beyond every Jewish Hebrew school in America? I'm going to give this one to Madison.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, thank you all for attending and watching, and thank you to the JCC for programming us. Well, as Jess said, you know, we have, and Dasha said, we have some upcoming festivals that are not all public yet, but hopefully we will have some more virtual screenings throughout this year. So if you like the film, if you would tell your friends and family about it, you know, we're on Instagram at Tahara the Film. So you can follow us there to see the latest updates. Jess, Dasha, do you have anything to add?
We're still looking for distribution. So if you know anyone who distributes films, please send them our way. Oh my goodness. And we also have a Gmail. It's taharathefilm@gmail.com. So if you want to keep in touch with us, that goes to the whole production staff. So we'd love to talk, and we'd love to get the film to your area. If you have a festival or a screening or a JCC that you attend, if you don't attend the Manhattan JCC, let us know. We'd love to get the film to you and your community and whatever we can do.
You should get this film on J Film Box, which is a network of Jewish film festivals, way of accessing films that don't necessarily have a distributor. So check out jfilmbox.org. That's just to the filmmakers. The audience doesn't need to check that out. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for a fabulous film. Thank you for making it, sharing it, and being a part, especially at these times. I want to wish everyone a happy Pride. I want everyone to stay safe. That's the most important things. We are going to get through all of this. And until then, we'll keep bringing you films virtually till we get to see all of you in person once again at the JCC. Once again, tomorrow night, we have No Small Matter, the Q&A for No Small Matter. So join us for that, and much, much more coming up this July and throughout the year. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Tell your friends to see this. There's a few more hours where they could see this film with the JCC. So please tell your friends to see this film tonight while they can, because this is a unique film to see, and they, I think, can get a kick out of it. Thank you all, and have a